Toastmaster Jairaj, the teacher, Toastmaster.
Thank you. Saturday will go. Sunday will go. Monday will come. And you will all enter the classroom. Like this, one teacher by name Mrs. Thompson entered the class for the first time. It was her practice to start the class by saying, "Love you all." But she knew she was lying. She did not feel the same love for one student in the class as she felt for the rest of the class. His name was Teddy. Very unkept, untidy. There was nothing in the boy which drew the attention of Mrs. Thompson. She picked him up for all the negative examples and she ignored him for all the positive reasons. She was very indifferent to that child. After the first quarter, she submitted progress reports for the first quarter. It was a practice in this school that every progress report has to be countersigned by the headmistress. When the headmistress saw the Teddy's progress report, she called for Mrs. Thompson and said, "A progress report should report some progress so that the parents of the child feel that the child has a future. But the way you have written Teddy's report, his parents will give up on him." Immediately, Mrs. Thompson said, "I cannot do anything about this. I have nothing positive to write about the child." The headmistress immediately asked the admin staff to get the old year's progress reports of Teddy and gave it to Mrs. Thompson. Mrs. Thompson saw the third year's progress report and the final remarks read, "Teddy is the brightest child in the class." Mrs. Thompson was stunned. She opened the fourth year's progress report and progressively all the remarks said got reports. Mrs. Teddy's mother is suffering from terminal cancer. She is not able to give the same attention as she was giving earlier, and this is showing up on Teddy's performance. She opened the fifth standard progress report. It read, "Teddy has lost his mother, along with that has lost himself." By now, there were tears in the eyes of Mrs. Thompson. She looked at the principal and said, "I know what to do." She went back to the class, probably it was Monday morning, and again from the dais of the class, she said, "Love you all." But again she knew she was lying, because this time the love she felt for Teddy was far, far greater than the rest of the class. She decided to change her approach. For every positive example, she picked up Teddy's name. And there was no more negative reference. Last day of the school, all the children had brought gifts to the teacher. There was one gift wrapped in an old newspaper. Somehow, Mrs. Thompson sensed it must be from Teddy. She opened that newspaper. There was a half-used perfume bottle and a bracelet from which few stones had fallen off. The whole class laughed, knowing it was from Teddy. Without saying anything, Mrs. Thompson picked up the perfume bottle, sprayed it on herself, and wore that bracelet. With a quarter smile, it seems Teddy said, "Now you smell like my mother." This was the last perfume she used before she left me, and this was the last piece which was removed from her body before she was taken to the hospital. End of the next year, there was a note on Mrs. Thompson's table. "I have seen few more teachers, but you are still the best, Mrs. Thompson. With love, Teddy." Every year at the end of the year, there used to be a note on Mrs. Thompson's table. "I have seen few more teachers, but you are still the best I have ever seen, Teddy." Years rolled by, and they lost contact. Somehow, an agent was able to trace Mrs. Thompson, who had retired by now, and handed over the letter. And the letter was signed by Dr. Theodore, PhD. Teddy had become PhD. And the letter read, I have seen many more people in life. Mrs. Thompson, this is your Teddy. You are still the best. I am getting married. And I cannot think of getting married without your presence. Enclosed to the letter were to and fro tickets, flight tickets. Mrs. Thompson couldn't resist. She no longer had the perfume bottle, but she had preserved the bracelet. She wore that and went to the church. As she was about to settle in the last row, somehow the volunteers identified her and ushered her to the front row. Right in the front row, there was a chair with a placard named Mother. Theodore personally asked Mrs. Thompson to sit in the chair. He said, you are the closest to my mother I have ever experienced. Whatever I am today, he whispered in her eyes, whatever I am today is because of you, ma'am. The wedding happened, and Theodore introduced Mrs. Thompson to his newly wedded wife. Without Mrs. Thompson, I won't be where I am today. And there were tears in Theodore's eyes. Mrs. Thompson told the newly wedded woman, without Eddie, I wouldn't have realized a teacher first be a mother to her students, and only then a teacher. And there were tears in her eyes. If only every teacher can see himself or herself as a parent to every student of hers, they can be the turning point in the life of every student.